buried alive inside a $3.27 billion steel tube. 155 sleep-deprived sailors survive on just 1.5 cubic meters of personal space while breathing chemically manufactured air. How do these fragile human minds endure 90 consecutive days of total sensory blackout without violently shattering? Let's decode the terrifying biological chaos and the profound silent sacrifices keeping America's deadliest underwater ghosts alive. Right at this exact microsecond, 240 meters beneath the Pacific Ocean, a $2 billion Ohio-class ballistic submarine silently prowls the dark abyss. This 18,750-ton Leviathan carries 24 UGM-133 Trident 2D5 missiles. This payload packs enough thermonuclear firepower to vaporize an entire continent in mere minutes. But forget the apocalyptic machinery for a moment. The true terrifying marvel is the brutal reality happening strictly inside, trapped within this submerged steel pressure cooker. 155 elite American sailors fight a relentless daily war for biological survival. They continuously inhale a manufactured 20% oxygen mix, ripped violently from surrounding seawater by advanced electrolytic generators. Every single physiological need is mathematically calculated, heavily monitored, and artificially sustained. Massive monoethanolamine MEA scrubbers ruthlessly filter out the toxic carbon dioxide they constantly exhale, preventing silent asphyxiation. They share every microscopic fraction of habitable volume. An Ohio-class submarine measures 560 feet long, yet the actual operational floor space distributed per sailor equates to less than an office cubicle. There is nowhere to run, zero privacy, and absolutely no fresh breeze. Can you imagine flawlessly executing highly classified strategic commands for 90 consecutive days in a sealed metallic tube, where even the air you breathe is a recycled industrial byproduct? The engineering disparity between this warship and its human crew is terrifying. Heavily shielded S-8G pressurized water nuclear reactor. This robust hull operates at maximum tactical capacity for 20 continuous years without ever needing to surface. The submarine is practically immortal. Yet, the fragile human brains commanding it are absolutely not. After just 3 weeks without a single photon of natural sunlight, human biology begins to violently rebel against its host. Natural melatonin production severely malfunctions. Crucial vitamin D levels plummet dangerously low. The human mind completely loses its biological anchor to the 24-hour world above, rapidly plunging the crew into extreme cognitive fatigue. The steel machine thrives flawlessly in the freezing darkness, but the humans are pushed to the absolute limits of their sanity. This invisible psychological exhaustion is massively amplified by a relentless visceral physical threat. Operating strictly at a tactical depth of 240 meters, the ocean exerts a catastrophic hydrostatic force of exactly 341 pounds per square inch on the exterior. The sheer weight of millions of tons of cold salt water is desperately trying to crush them into oblivion. If you stand absolutely still in the dimly lit missile compartment during a deep dive, you will experience the most chilling acoustic phenomenon on Earth. The massive, 2-inch thick HY-80 high-yield steel hull physically compresses under the extreme ocean pressure. You will hear violent, dry cracks echoing sharply through the narrow corridors. It sounds exactly like a heavy caliber rifle firing directly next to your ear. That agonizing metallic snap is the ultimate climax of underwater terror. It is a brutal acoustic reminder that absolute watery annihilation is separated from their fragile bodies by just a few inches of groaning steel. One microscopic structural failure in a single submarine weld, and 155 lives will be violently extinguished in less than 40 milliseconds. Would you have the iron discipline to flawlessly execute complex military orders while the heavy ocean literally screams, actively trying to crush your skull? These extraordinary men and women endure this suffocating nightmare voluntarily, operating the ultimate strategic deterrent system. Their harsh daily reality is a spectacular masterclass in human resilience and unbreakable military discipline. If you truly believe that human willpower is the ultimate weapon, Hit that like and subscribe button right now to honor these silent warriors. But sleep, the most basic human instinct, is the very first battlefield where they ultimately fail. On a $3.2 billion Virginia-class fast attack submarine, securing a full night of peaceful rest is a mathematical impossibility. Unlike the massive strategic deterrent vessels, the Virginia is an agile underwater hunter-killer, aggressively designed for stealth and lethal efficiency rather than human comfort. Here, 135 elite crew members are forcefully crammed into a narrow titanium and steel tube equipped with exactly 94 permanent beds. The United States Navy does not view this severe deficit as a critical design flaw. Instead, it is a ruthlessly calculated logistical compromise, officially known as hot racking. For decades, these underwater warriors operated on a brutal and mind-bending 18-hour cycle. They endured 6 hours standing watch, 6 hours performing grueling mechanical maintenance, and just 6 hours attempting to sleep. It was a punishing operational tempo that treated sailors like replaceable machine parts rather than fragile biological organisms. In 2012, military command finally shifted to a standardized 24-hour schedule to artificially mimic natural human circadian rhythms. However, this administrative calendar fix completely ignored a far more insidious, invisible biological enemy relentlessly attacking the crew: ambient carbon dioxide. While normal surface atmospheric CO2 hovers safely around 400 parts per million, inside a sealed tactical submarine, it routinely fluctuates between a staggering 2,000 and 4,000 parts per million. Continuous, inescapable exposure to this heavily saturated chemical environment triggers mild respiratory acidosis directly within the human bloodstream. The sailor's brain is effectively, continuously starved of peak oxygen delivery at a cellular level. Consequently, even if a highly trained sonar technician managed to secure 8 uninterrupted hours of rack time, they still wake up trapped in a state of persistent cognitive fog. They find themselves battling severe physical lethargy, compromised memory retention, and delayed synaptic reaction times during operations. Now, forcefully combine that invisible chemical exhaustion with the ultimate psychological invasion of personal space. Imagine being a newly deployed non-qual, a junior enlisted sailor desperately studying complex schematics to earn your coveted submarine dolphins. Your exhausting 6-hour sonar shift finally ends, leaving your mind completely drained and desperately craving absolute isolation. You carefully navigate the narrow, red-lit passageway into the berthing area, stepping lightly because dropping a heavy boot here is a severely punishable offense. You pull back the thin, flimsy privacy curtain to reveal your assigned tiny horizontal slot. The thin vinyl mattress is still physically radiating the intense body heat of the machinist's mate who just vacated it exactly 3 minutes ago. The damp, stale air heavily reeks of synthetic hydraulic fluid, toxic amine gas, and another man's dried sweat. The crumpled sheets still firmly hold the physical, indented shape of his tired spine. You must reluctantly crawl directly into this suffocating, coffin-sized MRI machine, physically incapable of even sitting upright without hitting your skull. There is zero human dignity here, only a desperate, animalistic need for sheer biological survival. How many days could you hold out when your bed is the shared property of 2 other strangers? This toxic cocktail of elevated CO2 disrupted human biology, and severe, compounding sleep deprivation inevitably engineers catastrophic operational risks. It is exactly 0300 hours tactical time, deep within the dark, hostile waters of the Philippine Sea. A highly classified trailing mission is currently underway, requiring acoustic perfection. The officer of the deck, OOD, a seasoned naval lieutenant, is actively operating on his 48th consecutive hour of heavily fragmented, poor quality sleep. The 7,800-ton Virginia-class submarine is running completely silent at a tactical depth of 150 meters, closely tracking a diesel-electric adversary. Suddenly, a critical microcalculation regarding the enemy target's acoustic bearing drift is processed slightly incorrectly. The lieutenant's chemically fatigued, oxygen-deprived brain tragically misinterprets the complex broadband sonar waterfall display by a mere 3 degrees.
He confidently orders a minor tactical course correction of right 5 degrees rudder. Unintentionally, he steers the massive nuclear submarine directly into the enemy's baffles, the absolute acoustic blind spot.
In modern naval warfare, closing underwater distance without perfect acoustic clarity is an absolute death sentence. The terrifying collision alarm instantly blares through the steel corridors, shattering the silence. The diving officer screams a frantic, adrenaline-fueled order to take an immediate steep-down angle. The metal deck violently pitches forward at a staggering 20 degrees, turning unsecured gear into dangerous projectiles. The massive warship plunges violently down into the black abyss, its powerful propulsor screaming in cavitation. They narrowly avoid a catastrophic metal-on-metal underwater collision by less than 50 microscopic yards. When the body is utterly exhausted, the only thing keeping them awake is the scent of fresh bread drifting from a 10 by 14 foot space. Deep within the bowels of this billion-dollar warship, the galley is a miraculous 10 by 14 foot culinary sanctuary. Here, a heavily overworked team of just 6 culinary specialists performs absolute logistical magic. They flawlessly execute the legendary Mid-Rat's midnight rations, feeding a ravenous crew operating constantly on completely opposite ends of the fragile human biological clock. In the first few weeks of deployment, this tiny stainless steel kitchen churns out fresh salads, vibrant fruits, and soft, warm bread. It is the ultimate morale booster, a fleeting taste of home. But naval logistics possess a ruthless, unforgiving expiration date. After exactly 45 continuous days submerged, the vibrant illusion of a normal surface life completely shatters. The fresh produce inevitably rots away. The precious milk supply runs violently dry. The submarine aggressively transitions into a bleak, high-stakes nutritional survival mode. Those world-class culinary specialists are strictly forced to rely on massive, hidden stashes of sodium-heavy canned goods and dehydrated military rations. That highly anticipated steak night suddenly features a solid, military-grade block of flash-frozen, texturized protein. It is mathematically calculated to deliver maximum caloric density rather than basic human pleasure. Every single calorie is meticulously rationed, ensuring the 135 sailors have enough kinetic energy to keep the nuclear beast hunting. However, digesting this heavy fuel requires one critical, highly vulnerable resource: pure, life-sustaining fresh water. You might assume water is abundant while surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. That assumption is fatally incorrect. The submarine relies entirely on a highly complex, fragile vacuum distillation system. This massive reverse osmosis unit aggressively boils and purifies toxic seawater, generating precisely 10,000 gallons of perfectly clean water daily. It cools the nuclear reactor, generates the synthetic oxygen, and keeps the fragile crew alive.
But what happens when a microscopic, hidden mechanical failure occurs? Imagine a severe rupture in the primary brine discharge pump. The massive distillation plant instantly scrams. The heavily armed submarine immediately shifts to its strictly limited emergency reserve tanks. Suddenly, an invisible, terrifying 48-hour death clock starts relentlessly ticking. Showers are immediately secured. Dishwashing is strictly prohibited. The human body requires constant hydration to survive. But the powerful S-8G nuclear reactor demands it aggressively to prevent a catastrophic thermal meltdown. In a devastating water crisis, the titanium machine will always drink first. The crew will slowly dehydrate in the suffocating heat.
This razor-thin margin of survival breeds an intense, almost religious adherence to operational discipline. Submariners live by a terrifying doctrine: the silent service. Down here in the crushing deep, sound travels exactly 4.4 times faster than it does in open air. The surrounding ocean is an incredible acoustic amplifier. If a tired machinist's mate accidentally drops a heavy 6-pound titanium wrench onto the unpadded steel deck plating, the sharp acoustic transient violently punches through the high-yield hull. That single, microscopic moment of human clumsiness instantly radiates across hundreds of miles of open ocean. It paints a massive, glowing acoustic bullseye directly on their hull for hovering enemy hunter-killer submarines. In a high-stakes combat patrol, dropping a simple hand tool is not a minor operational mistake. It is an act of collective and involuntary suicide. Every single sailor learns to walk like an absolute ghost. They meticulously slide their heavy boots across the linoleum deck to avoid creating fatal acoustic signatures.
Could you maintain that paralyzing discipline, knowing one clumsy misstep could instantly vaporize your entire crew?
This psychological tension explodes violently during a sudden, unannounced fire in the engine room drill. It is exactly 0200 hours. The general alarm brutally screams. The main lights are instantly cut, plunging the entire submarine into absolute, terrifying pitch-black darkness. Sailors frantically scramble through narrow steel corridors, navigating entirely by pure muscle memory. They must blindly locate and forcefully don their emergency air-breathing AAB mask in under 60 seconds. The air inside the rubber mask is heavily pressurized, violently forcing dry metallic oxygen into their panicked lungs. You cannot hear your shipmates over the deafening roar of the massive ventilation fans. You are entirely isolated, breathing frantically, feeling the intense, simulated heat of a catastrophic electrical fire. The heavy darkness aggressively suffocates you, pushing your claustrophobia to the absolute breaking point. It is a terrifying masterclass in extreme stress inoculation. They must flawlessly execute complex damage control procedures while their biological instincts scream at them to blindly run.
But the most terrifying silence they will endure is not the deadly absence of noise outside the steel hull, but the absolute, crushing silence from their own beloved families thousands of miles away.
When an attack submarine dives deep, it severs all tether to the surface world. This is absolute, uncompromising communication blackout. In our hyper-connected modern era, going offline for a few hours induces anxiety. Now, imagine 120 consecutive days with zero cellular signals, zero internet access, and absolutely no outbound communication. The heavy seawater acts as an impenetrable electromagnetic shield. To maintain maximum stealth, transmitting a single radio frequency is strictly forbidden. It would instantly betray their exact coordinates to lethal adversarial anti-submarine warfare assets. This profound sensory and social deprivation breeds a terrifying psychological condition known informally as submarine paranoia. The fragile human brain, starved of external validation, begins to ruthlessly manufacture its own dark narratives. Their only fragile lifeline to sanity is the rare familygram. It is a strictly limited, 40-word text message transmitted via extremely low frequency waves only when the submarine trails a specialized floating wire antenna. But what happens when that microscopic message is delayed? If a sailor expects a familygram during a brief communication window and receives absolutely nothing, psychological devastation instantly sets in. A delayed message from a spouse is not a minor inconvenience. It spirals into agonizing, silent panic. The sailor's mind violently collapses inward, obsessing over worst-case scenarios while staring blindly at a classified sonar display. The emotional toll exacted by this silent service is catastrophically high. Down in the crushing black abyss, time completely freezes, yet the world above relentlessly moves forward. There are brave American fathers tracking hostile nuclear deterrence patrols who have absolutely no idea their firstborn child just took their first breath. There are dedicated sons executing highly classified navigation maneuvers who will not learn of their own father's passing until weeks after the funeral is over. The United States Navy ruthlessly filters devastating bad news during combat deployments to prevent a sudden collapse in operational morale. These highly trained elite warriors willingly surrender their most precious personal milestones to the unforgiving ocean.
To successfully survive this crushing psychological isolation, the crew must forge an unbreakable, almost supernatural bond. This is perfectly encapsulated in the sacred tradition of earning the submarine dolphins. A junior enlisted non-qual sailor is operationally useless until they physically memorize every single valve, pipe, and emergency procedure aboard the 377-foot vessel. A torpedo specialist must intimately understand the S-8G nuclear reactor's complex scram protocols. A culinary specialist must know exactly how to manually operate the ballast control panel. Earning that silver insignia is not a mere military formality. It is a grueling, blood and sweat initiation, proving you can be completely trusted with the lives of 134 other men when the ocean inevitably tries to kill you.
Yet, the most haunting twist of this underwater existence occurs when the classified mission finally ends. The submarine triumphantly surfaces, and the crew returns to civilian life, but the deep abyss never truly releases them. Months after stepping onto solid ground, veteran submariners still involuntarily walk on the extreme outer edges of their feet. They are physically unable to break the ingrained habit of moving silently to evade enemy sonar. They subconsciously map out emergency breathing stations in brightly lit commercial grocery stores. Most terrifyingly, many suffer severe insomnia in standard bedrooms. Their brains have been so thoroughly rewired by the 240-meter depths that they cannot sleep unless they are surrounded by absolute pitch-black darkness and the heavy, mechanical hum of a massive ventilation fan. The open sky and a simple bedroom window become stressful psychological triggers.
A nuclear submarine represents the absolute pinnacle of human engineering. A flawless synergy of titanium, acoustic sensors, and split-second computational power. But the cold machinery is completely useless without the unbreakable human soul operating it. These sailors are the ultimate weapons. They endure biological chaos, toxic air, and devastating isolation to project unquestionable power across the globe.
If this deep dive into the harrowing reality of submarine life changed your perspective on military sacrifice, I need you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now. Help us decode the hidden truths of the world's most elite forces. They are the ghosts protecting peace, the ones who accept trading the light of their own lives to keep the world above forever radiant.